Yeah, it's really important that you're not intimidated by making cement planters. It isn't really that hard. It just requires from you to create your recipe, what you're comfortable with using, something that works for you, keeping it very simple. And if you do all that, there's so many beautiful additives and chemicals that you can use to increase the strength of your planters, cast in place massive planters. You can add air to your cement. You can add fibers to your cement. You can add colors to your cement. You can add chemicals that reduce the water required to make cement. Cement has come a long way. There's lots of opportunities and lots of things that you can do to make varied planters. And learning how to do it will make you a much different gardener because you will have planters everywhere. Yeah, I'm going to go through some of the fine details of mixing cement for, let's call it household use, how you can make your own patio stones, how you can make your own planters, how you can make ornamental pieces, how you can make art pieces for your garden. All those things require a very smart mix. And I want to go into some of the details about that. So the first thing is, let's talk about mixing. So I'm a big fan of energy in equals energy out. And it is no different for gardening when you're fixing up your soils, whatever it may be. It is no different for concrete, for creating concrete. And what happens is, I'm watching all these YouTube videos and somebody's using their hand and they have rubber gloves on and they're moving this cement around a little bit. And then they use a trowel, and no, you need energy. If you don't mix that cement correctly, you are not going to get a superior product. Mixing thoroughly, what it does, it makes all the elements that you're adding to your cement mix, and it is mixing the molecules or the particles in such a way that they're completely aligned with each other. The cement molecules are in between the gravel molecules, in between the sand molecules. So there's this energy input that is required to get this great mix. If you add color later on, if you add polypropylene later on, you need to have those materials completely mixed with each other and slotted. They need to be in their position, ready to go through the hardening process. If you do that correctly, you can survive the freeze-thaw cycle. You can survive almost all mechanical damage. If you hit it or whatever, the product is much stronger. So remember, energy in equals energy out. Mix, mix, mix. Put as much energy as you can into that concrete that it gets stronger and stronger. There is a point when you mix too much that energy is a negative. It can hurt the strength of the concrete. And be careful with that. Mix it. Look at your mix 3, 4, 5 minutes later. Is everything mixed well? Have you brought everything up from the bottom so it's mixed into the complete container that you're mixing inside? So pay attention to the energy. Okay, let's get into the next stage. Let's get into the additives. This is a very tricky thing that I want to explain. Yeah, if you can get away with always having the same mix, so 1 cement to 3 sand with a stony mix, if you can stick to a mix like that, you're way ahead of the game. And you add nothing to this mix, that is the most foolproof mix that you can create. When you add 1 cement to 3 sand, what happens is you're creating a very rich mix, which helps with the freeze-thaw cycle. It helps with the high early, so you can release the planter probably the next day. There's a lot of advantages adding extra cement to a mix. It's going to cost you a little bit more money with the cement, but it's a little bit of a foolproof scenario by mixing 1 to 3. Now, there's all kinds of chemicals that are intended to make the process of creating cement stronger and easier for you to process. Let's start with some of them. There is a product that reduces water. So it's an amazing product. You use this, comes in little pouches a lot of times. You take a tablespoon, and let's say you have a pail with a mix already started. Now you can't get your mixer to chew through this thick material because it's too dry. You take a tablespoon of the water reducer, you put the tablespoon in, and now it turns into soup. That's how powerful this water reducer is. It allows you to create cement with a lot less water content. And soupy mixes are one of the biggest enemies for people that make planters or whatever they make, because the more water you introduce to your mix, the weaker the concrete is going to be. So be cautious about the quantity of water you use. It's a very, very tricky scenario because a lot of people, they feel that it's hard for their mixer to mix. They don't feel comfortable, whatever it may be. They add water, add water, add water. The best thing to do is try to figure out how you can add the water at the beginning. So you have your recipe. You say, I need 2 liters of water. I need 9 shovels full of sandy gravel mix. And I need 3 shovelfuls of cement. Stick to it. Stick to it. If your sand or the gravel mix you're using is soaking wet, start with 1.5 liters. Whatever it is, make your adjustments. So there's one additive. It's the water reducer. The next one would be using specialty cements. And specialty cements have, they have high PSI ratings. They have high early. They harden very quickly. They are built for frost. So the specialty cements is a subject matter on its own. There's coatings for, so you have a planter and you can put another coat on top. There's all kinds of different cement materials you can buy in bags. Okay, so the next chemical I want to talk about is air entrainment. And a lot of people are doing it just by simply adding a little bit of dish soap to their mix. Air entrainment is very interesting because what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to create air bubbles. And these air bubbles are, again, when you mix the cement correctly, they are distributed throughout the mix completely. So you have these air bubbles that sort of create these passageways in the concrete, and that helps immensely with the freeze-thaw cycle. If you put 2 tablespoons of air entrainment in your house mix, your specialty mix for making planters, it makes a big difference with the freeze-thaw element. In warmer climates, there's not much of an advantage adding the air entrainment. I guess it just increases the volume of your mix a little bit. I can't think of any other reasons why you would use that. Now let's get into polypropylene fibers. Polypropylene fibers have this element of creating bridges in your concrete. They have all these little fibers that are, either 3/4 inch long, 1 inch long. They even have them in metal. So these fibers, what they do is they make your planters or your patio stones really impact resistant. So you hit them and they dent, but they don't split apart. So that's the element of that fiberglass. I've had planters that are falling off the back of a truck or whatever you want to, hit by something, and they stay together even though they have this massive fracture. But fibers, polypropylene fibers, have a bit of an issue, is they, especially for concrete countertops, they tend to like to come to the surface. So you need to burn them off with a torch. If you're making a fine polished finish, they do interfere with the surface. But for rough planters, there's no issue with the polypropylene fibers. Okay, now let's talk about decorating your concrete planters. So decoration is a very interesting subject matter. You can have a open planter with wet cement and you throw things on it. Gravels or colored gravels or stones or broken tile. There's a lot of decoration options with the outside of a planter. That is a taste thing. Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with the cement itself. It's just putting a decoration on the outside of the material. Now you have coloring. So you can add color to your mix. So it's a dry powdered mix that is an integral part of the mix of the concrete. It gets mixed in to the concrete itself. Again, super important to have a good mixer to get that color everywhere. If you have blotchiness or if you have unmixed portions of that color, it can ruin the surface of your cement planter. Now, there's a lot of options now, even latex-based stains that you can color your cement afterwards. So you have the integral color and you have the after color, what you're putting on afterwards, which can really be very decorative in the finishes you can achieve. Now, a lot of times these colors that you apply afterwards, you usually use 3-4 colors that are stone-like, and these 3-4 colors are sprayed on, let's say, and you have this, mottled color that is very organic looking. That's the advantage of putting the stain on afterwards, because you can actually see and influence how you're coloring this concrete. Integral colors are basically giving you a canvas. They will make your planter have a homogeneous color. Let's say it's a tan. Let's say it's a charcoal color. That's your canvas underneath if you're going to stain it afterwards. Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about is the weight of the concrete itself. And I noticed in the comment section of my other planter videos is that everyone has this fascination with making super light planters. Now, I used to be in this business making concrete planters and statuary, and we always tried our best to get the shipping costs down. We wanted to make these super light planters. We did all this research, we did all this testing, and guess what? It always backfired on us. We'd have people sending planters back that split apart in the freeze-thaw. So I've really developed a real enjoyment in making planters with a very simple mix. This 1-to-3 has done really well for me. Sure, the cement planters are incredibly heavy, harder to move around. But look, if you can have a planter that lasts forever and you can cast it close to the location where the planter is going to end up, why would you not do that? Keeping your mix super simple, keeping the energy that is required to move that planter around to a minimum, having enough guys around to move those planters into place is, in my opinion, a lot better than making, planters that have the possibility of splitting apart. You got to remember, a lot of people are thinking of the freeze-thaw cycle completely wrong. What happens is you'll have a planter. Inside the planter, you'll have your topsoil. In the winter months, it's soaking wet, that material. So it's +5 at night, -23 in the evening. It's not the planter that is moving. It is the dirt inside the planter that is expanding and pushing against the walls of the planter itself. So remember that the stronger the walls of the planter are, the more likely you're going to survive that freeze-thaw cycle. So if you can organize a weekend or a day where you have 3 or 4 big monstrous guys to move planters around, then you're way ahead of the game of adding perlite and vermiculite and light sands and potash, and it gets really complicated when your objective is to make really light planters. In my experience, oh my God, it really backfires a lot when you try to add these things. Vermiculite and perlite have a really nasty habit of wanting to float to the surface. And if your surface really matters,
it's really hard to use these materials that are lighter because they always want to go to the outside of the planter. They float, so they want to reach the outside surfaces. So stick to a house mix, a mix that you love, a mix that's successful for you, and stick to that. Keep your mixes simple, and you can make great planters and great products for your garden. And you'll turn around and you'll have 100 beautiful planters in your garden. And it's because you've understood how this simple mix actually works.